Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Stargirl Season 2, and this is going to be my review for Episode 9 for this season, otherwise entitled Summer School Chapter 9. But of course, spoiler, if you've not watched the episode, go away, because this episode was crazy with its story and its revelations, and there's a lot to talk about, so if you've not watched it, go away. But of course, if you have watched it, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions and thoughts and theories and predictions and everything going forward about past this episode and what's actually in the episode. Let me know all that in the comment section down below and what you just thought of the episode as a whole. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you enjoyed the episode, why not drop a like on the video to show that you enjoyed both of them. But of course, last episode was a big episode for Rick as well as Beth, but with Rick and Grundy, we saw a good side of the relationship as well as a bad side brought about by Eclipso and, the doubt that Rick still has with, with Grundy and him out in the open. But Eclipso does end up with him, Eclipso ends up making Rick fight his uncle, thinking that it's Grundy, and gets Rick sent to jail after almost killing his uncle. Meanwhile, we have Beth being harassed. That's the best word to be used, harassed by Eclipso. But she is able to overcome his fear visions and learn that as long as she wears the Dr. Midnight goggles, Eclipso can't really affect her. So that's a bit of a W for Beth and a bit of an upper hand going forward. Now with this episode, it bounced around a lot with the flashbacks and the present day stuff, which for most episodes on most shows would seem very rocky and unstable. Shows do it well, but I'd say more often than not, if you do flashbacks, mix and match, it can be a bit rocky a lot of the time, especially if you don't normally do them in each episode. But this one did it fairly well and allowed us to see the parallels between the past and the present, while also revealing more about the individual characters of the JSA and the JSA as a group, but also specific relationships within the JSA. Now, this was an episode I was very much looking forward to, and while there wasn't a ridiculous amount of Jay Garrick in the episode, which I honestly wasn't expecting, to be in the entire episode, just the flashbacks, he felt like a part of the JSA. He didn't feel like a guest character, which is perfect. And some of the revelations in this episode really make you look at how things were presented previously in the show, whether it's this season or season 1, in regards to the JSA and the relationships there, in a much different way. But yeah, let's talk about it specifically. So we start, quote unquote, decades ago. I love how Stargirl just doesn't say 24 years ago, 73 years ago. They just say decades ago, because the show should feel timeless. And I think that's a way to sort of help with that. But we start, quote unquote, decades ago in quite the extravagant place. It's definitely someone that has some money. And we're with Bruce Gordon after he has returned from Diablo Island. And this isn't like straight after. This is like after. Like, this is, I guess, many years after he's returned, because he's older, doesn't look like in peak exploring condition, though he's wearing the same clothes he wore when he did explore. But we do have Bruce talking to Eclipso, very similar to how we saw Cindy talking to Eclipso earlier this season. And Bruce is wanting to disconnect himself from Eclipso, but he doesn't want to disconnect himself from the power that Eclipso brings. Eclipso has ruined all of his relationships. Bruce is lonely, and Bruce is thinking of ending it. And Bruce reluctantly agrees to let Eclipso take control of him rather than Bruce killing himself, which of course is going to lead to great things, right? Nothing can go wrong. Eclipso's got a body now that he can use as a proper host. Nothing's going to go wrong, right? Right? But yeah, we do pick up in modern day Blue Valley, where the weather in the town is getting worse and worse. It's pretty much like hurricane tornado level. And while Pat is getting ready to bunker down the basement, Courtney on the other hand isn't going to let any more time pass. Just time pass by. What's happening with Rick? What's happening with Yolanda? What's happened with Beth specifically. So Beth and Courtney are pretty much working together. So instead of this group of 4, if you want to include Pat 5, it's now just, Beth and Courtney really, because Pat's sort of a bit sheltered off. Courtney is like, they need to make a move on Eclipso, and you can tell Pat is extremely wary and just almost scared, and just because he just knows what Eclipso can do and what Eclipso has done. But also we learn sort of that the trepidations around wanting to deal with it because of how it was dealt with in the past, which we'll talk about because of what happens in this episode. But we do see Pat see this yellow flower all of a sudden appear on the kitchen bench, and we flash back to the funeral of Rebecca McNider, who we of course saw killed by Eclipso in episode 1. Of course, Rebecca McNider being the daughter of Charles McNider, Dr. Midnight. Now, Pat is at the funeral alongside the rest of the JSA, Owlman, Wildcat, Starman. Obviously, Dr. Midnight's there. It's his daughter's funeral. But also, Jay Garrick shows up. Now, Jay sort of passes on some of the intel he's learned about what they are dealing with and also what killed Rebecca. So he just passes on that on to the other JSA members. But this does cut back to the present day where Pat starts to see the coffin of Rebecca McNider in his dining room. However, while a hand is creeping out of it in a very creepy way, he's able to snap out of that vision, though the yellow flower that triggered the flashback has now disappeared, though Pat had pricked his finger on it and drawn blood. So, Eclipso stuff isn't just like centering on one area, it's going across the entire town. So it's just spreading like wildfire, or spreading like a freak storm. But even at that funeral, you could just see that something was up with the JSA. There was just a lot of unease across them all. Like, they did it really well. The actors did a really good job of presenting that. Outside of it just being in one scene, like it seemed to be over like a majority of the scenes while also mixing up with different emotions. So they did a really good job with that, starting off with that scene. But Pat does go on to flashback again to another conversation with Starman where he's pleading Sylvester, or Starman, to help, or to let him help him. And this is when the Shade appears, of all people, with Sylvester going to talk to him alone, not allowing Pat in. And we sort of get a first-hand taste of seeing how Pat can feel what Mike was going through, but Sylvester disappears with the Shade. So once again, it's a lot of mystery and Pat just not being thrown into what's going on. Like, Sylvester's disappeared, but where'd he go? Is Pat just meant to wait for him, or is Pat meant to go, what's Pat meant to do? Is he meant to raise an alarm with the rest of the JSA, or just wait? So just a lot of like non-information given to Pat. You can just sort of feel how you can see how Pat was in a very similar situation to Mike. But as we cut back to the present day, we do see Pat going through some of the JSA files and archives, looking back on his time with him, with Sylvester, or Starman, back when he was even the Star-Spangled Kid. And this is when we get another flashback, which follows on from the previous one, with Sylvester returning from his meeting with the Shade, with Sylvester being given the finer details of what Eclipso is, what he can do, as well as, most importantly, how to stop Eclipso. Now, we learned that before, what's going on now, the Shade had actually faced Eclipso previously, and he tells Sylvester that to stop Eclipso, you have to kill the host, which of course goes against the JSA's code and just the heroic code as well. So are they really going to take another human life? Especially, which Pat says later on, I think it might have been Jay Garrick actually, like, he's the victim. Bruce Gordon's the victim. He's just being taken over. So you're victimizing the victim and you're killing someone who's not necessarily doing any bad. So, it's killing like someone that's technically innocent for the protection of everyone else, but it still goes against that moral code. But it's not just Pat, experiencing these weird things that are going on. Mike is wandering around the house. They're getting ready to go into the basement to bunker up, and he's trying to find his dad. He's trying to find Pat when it starts to get very cold all of a sudden, very chilly, very icy. But this is when Cameron Marquand shows up, of all people, asking where the rest of Mike's family is, which is a bit weird. You think he would just ask for Courtney. He's overly curious, and Barbara is occupied, which we will get to. But Cameron sticks around with Mike, though Courtney is upstairs, and you think it'd be the number one person Cameron would go and see. But Cameron's sort of like tapping into Mike's insecurities and fears, but then bringing up the death of Icicle, Jordan Marquand, Cameron's father, and him knowing that Mike was the one that ran him over. So Mike is like, oh crap, it's come out, and Mike now has to deal with it. Mike, even though we all know this is a vision, Mike now has to deal with the guilt that he's sort of been bunkering up, and you could sort of see when Cameron first appeared, he's a bit uneasy about it. So yeah, Mike's finally starting to deal with it, even though he was just passing it on as nothing, as an accident earlier on. But in regards to Barbara specifically, her car is stopped in the storm. It wouldn't start working. When all of a sudden, Jordan Marquand, aka Icicle, another Marquand, shows up in the back of her car, frosting it over, making it quite cold, with Jordan piling on guilt towards Barbara along with accusations of betrayal. However, the Shade is able to snap Barbara out of what's going on, and she is able to get away. So that's a quick cameo from Jordan Marquand and the return of Icicle, but it was still cool to see in this episode. I thought that scene might have gone a bit longer, but I don't know how more they could have done with it. So though it was cool to see him back, maybe would have wanted to see a bit more with him, but I don't know how you could have done more in that scene. It would have been cool maybe if him and Cameron appeared next to each other, but yeah, that didn't happen. But anyway, back to Mike. He is drawn deeper and deeper into these fears by Cameron. Even with Cameron killing Max, the family dog, I was like, oh my god, that went really dark. I hate even hearing that stuff that happens, like, animals dying. But yeah, I was like, oh my god, yeah, really dark. However, luckily for Mike, Courtney arrives and is able to snap Mike out of his vision and help. This is done with help from the Cosmic Staff, or Cosmo. I'm just going to say Cosmic Staff. I know it's Cosmo, but I'm a Cosmic Staff kind of guy. That's what I say. However, the visions haven't stopped. The visions continue. Pat sees the Starman suit of Sylvester appear all of a sudden in the bunker. Of course, we know that Courtney took that and transformed it into the Stargirl suit, so it shouldn't just appear there or shouldn't be there. But his hands are coated in blood after he picks it up, which is accompanied by flashbacks where we have the JSA approach Pat, with us learning that Green Lantern, the Spectre, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, and Dr. Fate, I think there might have been one more, couldn't take down Eclipso. So the taking down of the host is one of, if not the last options, which goes to a vote, and Pat needs to be sort of like that has to be an odd number. So if there's a tie, there can be a break in that tie. So Jay Garrick is a no. He's completely against it. He's the one that's bringing up the whole victimizing of the victim thing. Doesn't want to take part in it. Pat, of course, is a no as well. However, Wildcat and Owlman are a yes, and surprisingly, Starman's vote is also a yes. And though Pat voted no, Starman makes Pat take part by preparing the Star Rocket Racer and also just being the chauffeur, if you want to call it. And these flashbacks really showed quite the tense partnership and relationship between Starman and Pat. Like, it's one I didn't really like. It was almost like a dominating one. And I was like, God, and you gotta remember, like, Pat's older than Sylvester. Pat's been with Sylvester since he was a teenager, doing all this, like, sidekick stuff. I felt a bit uneasy watching it, and now I'm really, really intrigued to see what happens when what were believed to be a Sylvester or Starman comes in the present day. We know that he's been looking for Pat, so what happens there? Pat's getting reminded of these bad memories that involve Starman, like this dominating one, and making Pat do stuff that he didn't want to do. What happens in the present day, especially if Eclipso is there? It's going to be a bit crazy. Like, Pat probably might think that he's a vision again. So I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see what happens in the present day following these relationships with Pat and Starman. However, in the present day, this is when Bruce Gordon appears as a vision and attempts to shoot Pat, but he's snapped out of it by Courtney like Mike was. So yeah, Pat's not going through the best experiences in this episode. But this does lead Pat to reveal the content of his flashbacks, if you want to call it, to Courtney, revealing the secret that he was holding back and that Barbara encouraged, to keep a secret from Courtney, with us seeing the flashback which shows Starman return to Pat to the Star Rocket Racer after killing Bruce Gordon and retrieving the Black Diamond. There's some blood on the Starman suit and everything like that. But it's after that moment that the JSA actually splits up unofficially. They never had a meeting, split up. They just went their own way and did their own thing. So I'm assuming they went and did their own crime fighting and their own things, or they just went and lived their own lives just away from the JSA. With the JSA only ever getting back together when the Injustice Society formed again. But the JSA wasn't really a team then. They were just a group of individuals, which is why the Injustice Society took them down, which we saw in episode 1 of season 1. They weren't properly, united. So they weren't fighting alongside each other. They were just in a room, a group of individuals fighting. So, it just tore them apart. And this makes me wonder, is this why Eclipso needed the cosmic staff to break him out of the Black Diamond? As it was what we can assume killed Bruce Gordon originally, and it makes you wonder, will Courtney have to kill Eclipso with it this season? Is that the only way? Is the only way to take down Eclipso to kill him with the cosmic staff? Has it ended in one of these situations where it's the weapon to kill Eclipso and to take him down? And will he have to, I know it's really confusing because he's broken out now, but I don't know. It's interesting to see how they're going to do it, like how they're going to do this whole takedown of Eclipso and whether the cosmic staff is connected. Is it Courtney that has to use it? Will Sylvester or Starman, if that's actually him, come in and he's the one that uses the cosmic staff to kill Eclipso? I don't know. I'm very curious to see how it all wraps up come the end of the season, because these connections seem intentional. But yeah, in regards to that secret, of course, this secret being kept just does not sit well with Courtney, but it hurts even more when she learns that Barbara, her mother, also knew about it and kept it from her, which sends a rift through the family and, more importantly, through Courtney. And this is exactly what Eclipso wanted. Courtney was almost like, couldn't really be targeted by Eclipso because there was nothing really that, Courtney went through a lot of this stuff in season 1, so she's pretty much like a free spirit in season 2, but now there's something for Eclipso to latch onto. This is exactly what he wanted, and this is when we actually see the young Bruce Gordon, who of course is Eclipso, just laughing while watching the fallout through the window from the outside. Everything's falling in line with him. What does he do next? I have no idea, but I can't wait to see. But yeah, this episode it just revealed so much, and I think it actually reveals a lot that then plays out, going forward, as I said, with even like the Sylvester Pat stuff as well. I'm just curious to see where it goes. Now, in regards to flashbacks with the JSA, is this the last we see? Because obviously it wasn't necessarily massively positive flashbacks with the JSA, so that's for us to wait and find out whether we see more of that going forward into future seasons. But I enjoyed them from what they were, and it was cool to see that, more of the JSA there as well. But this episode, man, it just set some stuff up going forward, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. But just as an individual episode, I'd gladly rewatch it, just because I thought the interactions were really cool, and also I think the story it tells just really, really good as well. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts about the episode. What you love, what you hate, what were your favorite moments. Just let me know your general thought there in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.